Howdy y'all, and welcome to this special January outlook. Now just a disclaimer before we get into the forecast, what we could expect for the whole entire month of January. Keep in mind that we cannot predict the future, as anything over a week out is virtually impossible to forecast. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of the forecast, here is the video layout of how we will conduct our research here for January. First, of course, we already covered the disclaimer. Go into the key factors influencing our January weather. Get into the model guidance, which includes all the long-range, weekly, and monthly models. Give you expert guidance from the Climate Prediction Center. Give you my bold prediction. Show you an analog year that could resemble this January. Some facts and folklore, and I'll also wrap it up with a summary here at the end. And here are some factors influencing our January weather. I hope y'all can see this. Kind of just scrunched it in here, but here's how these factors will influence the weather here in January. We have ENSO, which y'all most likely know this one. It's La Niña, El Nino, or ENSO neutral. We have the NAO, which is the North Atlantic Oscillation. QBO, which plays a role in our polar vortex. The PNA, MJO, etc., which those are most likely confusing words, but we'll get into them. The ENSO phase is currently in a La Niña, which is characterized by cooler than average sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. This pattern is expected to persist into January before potentially transitioning to neutral conditions later in the winter. La Niña typically promotes warmer and drier conditions in the southern U.S., while favoring cooler and wetter weather in the Pacific Northwest and northern regions. Now the NAO, this one may be a little bit more confusing. It's on the bottom right here, basically up here in the northern Atlantic, obviously, hence the name North Atlantic Oscillation. But forecasts indicate uncertainty with a potential for a positive phase early in January, which could lead to milder temperatures in the eastern part of the country, followed by a possible shift to negative later in the season. A negative NAO often results in colder air intrusions into the eastern US and Europe due to altered jet stream patterns. Now, of course, we have the AO, which is likely to lean negative in January, influenced by other patterns like the QBO, which QBO influences the polar vortex. Negative AO phase tends to weaken the polar vortex just like the QBO, allowing colder Arctic air to spill southward into mid-latitudes, potentially bringing colder spells to parts of the US. Now the QBO, just like the AO, weakens down the polar vortex, is presently in a strong easterly phase, as shown here on the bottom left. Expected to continue through January, an easterly QBO can disrupt the polar vortex, increasing the likelihood of sudden stratospheric warming events that may lead to variable and potentially colder weather in northern latitudes. Now, the PNA and MJO, these are a little bit more confusing, but I'll walk you through them here, as currently we're near neutral, with a possibility of shifting to more negative phase by January. A positive PNA often features ridging in the western U.S., leading to warmer conditions there, and troughing in the east, which means colder, while a negative phase can reverse these tendencies. Now, last one here, the MJO remains uncertain for January, with potential interference from atmospheric waves that could suppress its activity when active. The MJO can modulate tropical convection and influence mid-latitude weather patterns such as altering precipitation and temperature anomalies. And we see how these factors interact dynamically, with ENSO serving as a foundational influence, while others like the AO and the NAO can introduce shorter-term variability. So I hope I didn't confuse y'all there, but if I did, then you could pause the video here and further understand this, or just leave me some feedback in the comment section down below. I will respond to you down there as well. Now, we can see down here in the ENSO pattern, this was issued in December, and we can see that currently in a pretty strong La Niña, but expected to head into a weak La Niña and into a weak El Nino phase as we head into spring, and especially as we head into summer, and heading into a strong El Nino as we head into the fall months. So let's go ahead and get into the long-range models, and then I'll give you some expert guidance and my bold prediction here in a little bit. Now, of course, as a disclaimer, like I said earlier, please take this forecast with a grain of salt, as anything over a week out is virtually impossible to forecast. Now, here are some of the models we'll be going through to take a look at what we could expect here this January. The GEFS Extended, Euro Weeklies, CSV2, and CMC. These are all the weekly models, while the Euro Seasonal, CSV2 Seasonal, and the Concept Seasonal are all going to be the monthly models. So first, we're going to take a look at the temperature anomalies for all of these models. Then we'll get into the precipitation anomalies here in a little bit. First, we're going to take a look at the GEFS. And as we push this forward, we can see that as we head into the beginning weeks of January, it's looking like the Great Lakes, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Upper Midwest, and a little bit of the Northern Plains are going to be coming in on a little bit below normal temperatures, while the rest of the country is looking to remain above average. Florida, y'all are also going to be a little bit below average to start off January. Now, as we head off into the middle and sort of the end of January, it's looking like much of the country will be heading into an above average temperature trend, unless you live out here in the West Coast and Pacific Northwest. But expect this to change as we head into the end of the month, as it's looking like much of the country could be heading into a colder than average temperature trend here as we head into the end of the month and into the beginning of February. So this model is showing us a little bit of a colder beginning and end of the month, while the middle of the month could be a little bit warmer than normal. But of course, this is one model run, and we got to take a look at many more, and I'll also compare and contrast these here in a little bit as well. Now next we got the Euro weeklies, which usually the Euro likes to show us a little bit of a warmer bias compared to the rest of the models, and I'll show you my favorite model here in a little bit. But the Euro weeklies are showing us really much of the same story as what the GEFS was showing us as we head towards the beginning weeks of January, with the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, Upper Midwest being a little bit below average to start, while the rest of the country is heading into a above average, sort of warmer temperature trend to start off January. Now, as we head into the middle of the month, we can see the stark contrast between this and the GEFS, with a little bit of a colder bias compared to the previous model, with more of the eastern part of the country remaining below average, while the rest of the country is sort of a mixed bag between warmer and cooler than average. Now, as we head towards the end of the month, say right around the 31st time frame, we can see we're still going to be remaining below average here for much of the country. So definitely a stark contrast between the GEFS and the Euro weeklies. But of course, we got a couple more models to go as far as the weekly models go anyway. And next we got this CSV2. This is my favorite weeklies model anyway. And we can see to start off January, according to the CSV2, we got the eastern part of the country, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, a little bit of the Upper Midwest being below average, while the rest of the country is going to be above average, unless you live down here in the Southwest, and a little bit of the Pacific Northwest. Now, as we push this forward here into the middle of the month, it's looking like, wow, it's looking like much of the country is going to be heading into well below average temperatures. So this one's a little bit in agreement with what the Euro weeklies was showing us, and is differing from what the GEFS was showing us, which the GEFS is sort of in its own lane, per se. And we can see the up here by Montana could be coming in on well below average temperatures if we stick with the CSV2, while the Southeast is looking to warm up slightly. It's not off the charts or anything, but it's looking like, according to this CSV2, we could head into a slight warm up down here. Now, as we head towards the end of the month, right around the, I would say, 30th time frame, it's looking like much of the eastern part of the country is going to be below average, while the west is going to be a mixed bag out there, but leaning above average out there. So last but not least of the weekly models, what does this one have to show us? Well, it's showing us much of the same story as the rest of the models were showing us. So I'm thinking the beginning of January is going to be a little bit cold here out east, while the central and western part of the country, and really the rest of the country, is going to be above average to start off January. But of course, we'll still take a look at the expert guidance here in a little bit. But as we push off into the middle of the month, let's say the 16th to 17th time frame, it's looking like much of the country is going to be below average. So it's looking like the only model that differs between all of the models is really the GEFS, as the GEFS was showing us cold out east like the rest of the models, but the only difference was that the middle of the month was showing that much of the country is heading to a warmer than average trend, and the rest of the models are showing a little bit of a colder bias here in the middle of the month. But of course, as we head toward the end of the month here, let's say the 30th time frame, looking like much of the country is still going to be remaining below average. I don't think I'm in agreement with this one. I would be in agreement with the CSV2, so we go back to that one actually. And I'll show you here before we take a look at the monthly models, but we can see I'm in agreement with the colder bias here out east, while the rest of the country is heading into a warmer than normal trend. But as we head towards the middle of the month, I think we're going to be really, really cold here in the western and central part of the country, and a little bit warmer than normal here in the southeast, mid-Atlantic, and northeast. But expect this to rapidly change as we head towards the end of the month, as I think the end of the month we could be really cold. This one is pretty spot on with my bold prediction that I'll show you here in a little bit. Now on to the monthly models here. We're going to start off with the Euro seasonal. Now keep in mind the Euro seasonal has a warmer bias, at least compared to the Euro weeklies anyway. We rewind this to the January outlook. According to the Euro seasonal, they're showing us that the northern part of the country, mainly up here in the northern plains, is going to be a little bit below average, while the rest of the country is going to be above average, which usually the Euro seasonal shows us a warmer bias, at least compared to the rest of the models anyway. Now, what about the CSV2? This is my favorite model of all of them. We can see that, I'm in agreement with this one, we can see that the Northeast, Great Lakes, Upper Midwest, Northern Plains, and some of the southern part of the country is going to be below average. Florida's going to be above average, while the Southwest Rockies are going to be a little bit above average. The Pacific Northwest is going to be a little bit below average, though. I would be in agreement with this one. Last but not least, of the temperature models here, we can see that the Canceps model is showing a little bit of a colder bias here. Colder funneling southward into the central to southern plains, while the southwest and southeast is going to be heading to a above average trend. So what does the experts have to show us? Well, drum roll please. As we can see here, the Climate Prediction Center is showing us below average temperatures here in the northern plains, while the southwest and southeast is going to be heading into an above average trend. Equal chances means either above or below normal temperatures, and I think to start off January, I think we're going to be a little bit cooler than normal here out east, and then we're going to warm up slightly as we head into the middle of January, but then I think some really bitterly cold air is going to be coming down we head towards the end of the month, at least here out east anyway. Now, before I get into my bold prediction, let's go ahead and get into the precipitation outlook. Now, just like with the temperatures, we'll take a look at all of the weekly models and the monthly models, starting off with the GEFS. We can see that the Pacific Northwest is looking to dry out as we head into the beginning weeks of January, while down here by California is going to be above average. As far as the central and eastern part of the country goes, looks like the Northeast is going to be above average, while the rest of the eastern part of the country is going to be heading into a little bit of a drying pattern. So if we stick with the GEFS, looks like it's going to be dry to start here out east, while the Northeast and out by California is going to be starting off on a wet note, which there has been some atmospheric rivers that have been occurring out there, by the way. Head off into the middle of the month is looking to remain much of the same story, really, at least up until the 16th time frame, where it looks like the eastern part of the country from the Great Lakes, upper Midwest down into the south is looking to be heading into an above average trend, which if we stick with the GEFS, as far as the precipitation and temperature anomalies goes, we could be heading into a severe weather pattern, as we're going to be shifting from colder than normal temperatures out east to warmer than normal as we head into the beginning and middle parts of January. But of course, we got some more models to take a look at, so we'll get into that here in a little bit as well. But let's head up towards the end of the month, say the 31st time frame. It's looking, of course, there's more whites on the map. That means more uncertainty, but it's looking like the eastern part of the country could be heading into an above average trend, as well as out west, but really a lot of uncertainty here, hence why there's more white on the map. Now, what does the Euro Weeklies have to show us? Well, they're showing us much of the same story as what the GEFS was showing us, with the Pacific Northwest being drier than normal. Eastern part of the country into the central part of the country is going to be a little bit below normal, sort of a dry start to January here out east and in the central part of the country. The Northeast, above average. Upper Great Lakes, a little bit above average. Could mean more snowstorms up there, by the way, because we're going to be starting off a little bit cooler than normal. All the models have been showing that. And out here by California, could be heading into an above average precipitation trend to start off January. Now, as we head off into the middle of the month, right around the 16th time frame, it's looking like the West Coast could be drying out. This is a stark contrast to what the GEFS was showing us. Looks like the eastern part of the country here in the Ohio Valley could be drying out, but there is a lot more whites on the map, so definitely a lot more uncertainty as we head towards the middle of the month. And as we head towards the end of the month, there's a lot of uncertainty. So really, I can't really tell you much other than really I think the West Coast is going to be drying out, at least according to this anyway, while the eastern part of the country here is going to be a little bit soggy, a little bit more wetter than normal, essentially. Now on to my favorite model, which is the CSV2, and you can clearly see why it's my favorite. You can see a stark contrast between the below and above average really clearly compared to the rest of the models. That's why I like this one. It's easier to see. But we can see to start off January. And it's looking like the central and eastern part of the country could be starting off on a dry note, while the southwest, very far northern plains could be starting off on a little bit of a wet note. As we head off into the middle of the month, it's looking like we're going to shift from dry conditions to a little bit wet conditions here in the central part of the country, while the west coast is looking to dry out, and looks like the southeast could be drying out as well. Of course, more whites on the map means more uncertainty, like I said earlier. And as we head off into the end of the month, it's looking like the east could be drying out, while the Rockies could be a little bit wetter than normal. So this is a stark contrast between this one and the GEFS. Now, what does this one have to say? This is my least favorite model out of all of them, but we can see been pretty consistent as far as the temperatures and precipitation goes to start off January. It's looking like the eastern part of the country is going to be cooler to start and drier to start, according to all of the models anyway, while the west coast is going to be a little bit warmer and wetter to start, which could mean more snowfall up here in the California mountains. Though above average don't mean warm, just means a little bit warmer than it has been, which means there could be some snow up upper elevations and a lot of sogginess going on in the lower elevations, which means basically a lot of suckiness pretty much. Well, the Pacific Northwest is going to be a little bit below normal. Now, as we head into the middle of the month, of course, more whites, more uncertainty, but we can see the southern part of the country is going to be a little bit above average, while the west coast is going to be drying out. The west coast has been pretty consistent with the rest of the models, so it's looking like the west coast could be heading into a drying trend as we head towards the middle and end of January, while the eastern part of the country could be heading into, I would say, a mixed bag between dry and wet, so it's kind of up in the air really, according to the models. But I'll show you the expert guidance here in a little bit. And we can see as we head towards the end of the month, it's looking like the eastern part of the country could be heading into a little bit of a soggy pattern. So as far as the weekly models go, I think I would be in agreement with the GEFS. Now, the reason why I'm in agreement with the GEFS is I think we are going to be heading into a cool and dry start to January here out east. The northeast could be a little bit soggy, as well as up here in the upper Great Lakes and California. You could be very soggy as well. And I think the Pacific Northwest, I think y'all are going to be getting a break as we head into January as far as the atmospheric rivers go, and just a lot of heavy precipitation. So that's some good news. And I'll show you the reason why I'm in agreement with this one is because of this right here. I think we are going to be heading into a very active middle part of January here out east, because I think we're going to be going from really cold temperatures to some slightly warmer temperatures, which could result in some heavy snowfall here in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes, and some severe weather down here in the Tennessee Valley and Ohio Valley potentially. So I think the middle of the month is going to be very wild, but of course that's still up in the air, and this is a long-range model, so keep that in mind. Take this with a grain of salt. But as we head towards the end of the month, I think we are going to be starting to dry out here in California and out here in the eastern part of the country. Some areas could be above average though, but of course, let's go ahead and get into the monthly models here. Starting off with the Euro seasonal. This one always has a warmer bias, but of course we're taking a look at the precipitation. We can see that for the whole entire month of January, according to the Euro season, it's looking like the eastern part of the country is going to be above average from Texas up into the northeast, while the southeast is going to be below average, as well as out here by California and Texas. The Pacific Northwest is looking to be above average. I would sort of be in a disagreement with this, but of course, this is one model of many. So on to the CSV2, which is my favorite. I would be in agreement with this one. I think overall, we're going to be drier than normal here in the upper Great Lakes, upper Midwest, and Northeast, and a little bit of the Ohio Valley and central part of the country, while the deep South, Southeast, and South Central is going to be above average. The Pacific Northwest, I think y'all are going to be getting a break from this atmospheric river, so I'd be in agreement with some below average precipitation up there, while the Rockies are going to be coming in on above average precipitation. Now, what about the CANSIP seasonal? Last but not least, we can see that some of the eastern part of the country into the northeast and central part of the country is going to be coming in on above average precipitation, while the southeast, deep south, and south central is going to be drier than normal, as well as out here in the Rockies and west coast. So I hope I didn't confuse y'all, but if I did, then let's go ahead and take a look at the expert guidance. And they're showing us that the Northwest and Ohio Valley and upper Midwest is going to be above average, way above average here in Indiana and Kentucky, and way above average here in Idaho, parts of Washington and Montana. So definitely a stark contrast to what I was saying, but I would trust the expert guidance here. While the Southwest and Southeast are going to be heading into a below average trend. So what are my thoughts on what we could expect? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the bold prediction. And according to my bold prediction for January, the United States could anticipate a sudden stratospheric warming event that could disrupt the polar vortex, which could trigger a major cold outbreak in the eastern and central part of the country during the latter half of the month, featuring below normal temperatures and elevated snowfall. This deviates from the Climate Prediction Center's forecast of above normal temperatures in the southern and eastern areas. Amid a weak La Niña, supporting factors include the ongoing easterly QBO, which weakens the polar vortex and heightens the sudden stratospheric warming likelihood via tropospheric stratospheric wave enhancements. Drawing from historical analogs, which we'll get into here in a little bit, and the models that we took a look at earlier, residual impacts from the November sudden stratospheric warming event could prompt a secondary event, with La Niña-driven jet stream dynamics enabling Arctic air incursions. Expected negative AO and NAO phases will amplify the cold through Greenland and northern Pacific, blocking superseding milder trends. So basically, we could have a polar vortex coming through here in the middle of the month. Now, as we go back to my favorite model, which is the CSV2 weeklies model, we can see clearly why I issued the bold prediction is based on this right here. We could be coming in on the sudden stratospheric warming event here in January, which could lead to a polar vortex, which is shown pretty much right here, where we could have well below average temperatures here in Montana, and this could stretch its way down here into the eastern part of the country, heading to the end of the month. So I would definitely be in agreement with this, and this is right in alignment with my bold prediction. But of course, subject to change, so please keep that in mind. This is a long-range forecast, so definitely take this with a grain of salt. This may not even happen in the first place. And what about the analog year? Well, a historical analog year that intriguingly combines elements of both the bold prediction that I showed you earlier, involving a sudden stratospheric warming event under weak La Niña conditions and an easterly QBO. Current data favoring generally milder temperatures without major cold disruptions is January of 2006. During the 2005-2006 winter, a weak La Niña prevailed with an easterly QBO phase and a major sudden stratospheric warming event, which occurred on January 21st of 06, which disrupted the polar vortex. However, unlike typical expectations for cold outbreaks, this sudden stratospheric warming resulted in warmer than normal conditions across much of North America, including record high temperatures in part of the Midwest during mid-January, while colder air was displaced toward Russia. This outcome reflects variability in stratospheric influences, aligning with the Climate Prediction Center's probabilistic mild outlook for this January, while incorporating the potential for sudden stratospheric warming-induced surprises as in the bold forecast. So basically, pretty much, we could have a January like we did back in 2006. There's a lot of similarities to 2006. So basically, we could have a little bit of a colder start here out east to start, and then heading into, I think, a sudden cold snap, I think is what we could be coming in on. But I think we could head back into a milder trend as we head toward the end of the month, with the whole entire month pretty much being warmer than average overall. Although we could be coming in on that one cold snap. But of course, this can and will change. So now that I beat the dead horse on the forecast for January, here's a fun fact that you either knew or not knew about this month. An intriguing fact related to January weather in the United States is the phenomenon known as the January Thaw, a period of unseasonably mild temperatures typically occurring in mid to late January across the Northeast and Middle Atlantic regions. This temporary warming spell, often lasting several days, has been documented in climatological records as a statistical singularity, appearing more frequently than chance would suggest, providing a brief respite from winter severity and occasionally leading to partial snowmelt even in colder areas. And we could be coming in on this January, as we could have a cold start to January leading up into the middle of January with a major cold snap. But I think at the end of the month, I think we could have a slight warm up that could lead to a January thaw. So again, will change. Take that with a grain of salt though. Now last but not least, some folklore that's related to the January thaw. One common proverb holds that birds whistling or becoming unusually active during January signal an impending return to harsh frosts, reflecting observations of mild intervals often followed by renewed cold snap. Another saying ties early January conditions to the broader winter, suggesting patterns in the first few days may foreshadow the months ahead. Modern analysis attributes such tendencies to atmospheric circulation shifts rather than purely predictive lore. These elements add a cultural dimension to the variability expected in January, blending historical observation with the potential for contrasting mild and cold periods. So there's some facts and folklore you most likely never knew. So I hope y'all got a lot out of this video. If you did, then please make sure you hit that like and share button so more folks are informed about the weather. Also, leave me some feedback in the comment section down below, as any feedback helps provide you, the viewer, better and more informative content in the future. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button, because at Here Wins Weather we try to make weather forecasting fun and informative. So basically, what would I expect for the month of January? Well, I think we're going to be starting off cold here out east, while the rest of the country is going to be a little bit warmer than normal. But for those who are going to be experiencing a warmer than normal trend here for the month of January, don't get used to it though, because I think we could have one cold blast here left in us in the middle of the month, which could result in the polar vortex stretching its way down here into the eastern part of the country. But I think we could head into one slight warm up as we head toward the end of the month. But of course, the can will change. Please take that with a grain of salt though. And as far as precipitation goes, I think we are going to be starting off dry here out east, but I think in the middle of the month we could have a lot of precipitation in store, at least according to the models anyway, which could result in some blizzard conditions in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes, and some severe weather potential in the mid-south. So definitely be aware of that. We can come in on severe weather this time of year, and definitely be aware of significant snowstorms as well. So again, enjoy this January, y'all. Hard to believe we're already coming into 2026 already. 2025 seemed like it went on very, very quickly. It's like it went by in a flash. So again, enjoy the rest of 2025 if you're watching this in 2025. And if you're watching this in 2026, then enjoy the year, y'all. Soak it all in. Don't make it go too fast, y'all. So again, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate all of y'all for watching, and until next time, never stop forecasting.